Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, all of you. We'll just start in 2 minutes. Right. Hi, guys. Good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the session. Apologies for the delay in the start. I was just setting everything up, but okay, no issues. So let's start the session, and hopefully you guys, I mean, had you guys had attended the other sessions also, which were happening. Sure, they must have been meaningful, and yeah. Anyway, so coming to today's agenda, which is mastering the odd sentence question type. So essentially, this class is from a beginner's point of view only. I am not going to, go into too much of advanced problem solving with regards to odd one out or irrelevant statements or the odd question type question. But let me just share my screen and let me start with a little bit of theory. Okay, what is essentially important to know, right? Because there is a lot of things which I've discovered while looking at recent CAT papers and trying to understand. Before the session, I was just doing a little bit of research and just trying to see that what has the CAT been doing recently, which makes the students get very confused in this question type. All right. So to explain very quickly first, what is the question type about? Wait, I'll just pull up a text that will help you understand what the question type is about. Just a second. So yeah, let me put it on the board here. So it says, the question says, this is how it is worded in the paper. Uh, right. It says that 5 jumbled up sentences related to a topic. So try to understand, they're all related to a topic. And you'll have 5 sentences, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All these 5 sentences are given to you, right? 4 of them can be put together to form a coherent paragraph. That means that 4 of these 5 sentences are taken from a source wherein they can be arranged in a proper manner. All right. So let's say the right order, let's say, for example, first sentence is a sentence which does not belong to the paragraph. And of course, 4 of them can be put together to form a coherent paragraph. Identify the odd one out and key in the number of the sentence as your answer. Right. So let's say the correct answer, let's say, is 3, 4, 5, 2 for the right order. So basically, all these sentences are jumbled. Okay, they're not in the same order. They will never be in the same order, and you will get these as a jumbled sentence, and you have to unjumble it, understand what is the correct sequence, and find the odd one out and answer. Put the odd one out as your answer. Right. So essentially, what happens is the fact that the 4 of the 5 sentences can be put together to form a paragraph. That means that you want to try to understand when you read. Okay, let's say you read sentence 1, you read sentence 2, you read sentence 3, 4, and 5. You will understand, okay, you will have a vague understanding, all right, that what is being talked about. So what is being talked about in all of these sentences, and you will oftentimes find that you can link 2 sentences together. Oftentimes you will find this, all right, that maybe sentence 3 and 4, you feel that they should come together, they look like a good sentence, all right. And the odd sentence which will be there in the question, okay, the sentence which you have to identify as not a part of this paragraph, that sentence will also have some key elements, as I'm also going to show you 2 questions, key elements of things which are being talked about in the other sentences. But the idea which that particular sentence, which is the odd sentence, which is trying to set, that idea will be completely unrelated or different. It could be related, but it would be different from what the other sentences are trying to do, right? And oftentimes you'll find that the sentences are actually taken from the same source. All right, initially it used to happen that CAT used to take from different sources, but nowadays what has been happening is that they pick a article from, let's say, Eon. All right, let's say they pick an article from Eon, and see, the question setter who is setting this question, all right, in the exam, he is not the person who's writing the sentence. All right, he's not going to write the sentences. All he will do is he will pick 5 sentences, 4 of them which are from the same paragraph, or maybe adjoining paragraphs, and those adjoining paragraphs will have no sentences in between generally, right? And the 5th sentence which he wants to try to confuse you with, that sentence will probably be from either earlier in the paragraphs, or in the article or later in the article. So essentially, let's say you have paragraph 2. Okay, paragraph 2, let's say, is of 5 sentences. So what the question setter will do is he will take 4 sentences from paragraph 2, and then one sentence he might take from paragraph 5. But since the topic is the same, let's say the topic is about tariffs, for example. Okay, so paragraph 2 and paragraph 5, since the topic of the article is about tariffs, both of the paragraphs are going to talk something about the tariffs only. But maybe what the difference here will be that the 4 sentences which have been taken from paragraph 2, those sentences probably talk specifically about US tariffs. And sentence 5th, which was taken from the 5th paragraph, maybe it is talking about tariffs on India, which would make it the odd one out. Or it could be something else also as well. Okay, maybe it talks about US tariffs only. All right. But sentence 2, the sentences which have been taken from paragraph 2, they talk about implication of the tariffs, implication meaning the repercussions or the effects of the tariffs on US economy. Maybe that is the idea of the 4 sentences which were taken from paragraph 2. And from the 5th paragraph, which the sentence was probably taken, that talks about the effects of US tariffs on maybe the Indian economy. So even though it is about tariffs only, right? And as it says, 5 jumbled up sentences related to a topic. So all of them are going to be related to the same topic. Okay. And that is where students often get confused. Ki, Array, all of these are related. So how do I actually find the odd one out? So the key skill, and this is again, I'm going to show you this through questions as well. The key skill you want to try to identify or try to learn, sorry, not identify. The key skill you need to learn to solve this question type is trying to differentiate. Okay, you need to learn how to differentiate from multiple ideas which are presented in a paragraph or in a sentence, okay, or in multiple sentences. If you're able to differentiate, okay, that sentence number 2 talks about sentence number 2, 3, 1, and 4. Let's say all these talk about US tariffs and their implications or effects on US economy. And you can identify that sentence number 5 is talking about the effects on Indian economy, the effects of US tariffs on Indian economy. Then you will be able to understand that this is the odd one out. But this is where students often get confused, and of course that is the agenda for today's class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first question which I want to discuss. All right, I'm going to take the question. I'm going to put it on the board. Right, we're going to solve it together. Right, and we're going to do 2 questions only today. I'm not going to do 5 questions or 10 questions. That's not the idea. I don't want to do multiple questions together. That's not the idea. The idea is that I want to help you understand, right? Help you understand what is exactly to be done in the question type. And once you understand, of course, you guys can implement the same thing. And I'm happy to, take more sessions also on the topic. That's not an issue, right? Later on. But right now, the idea is to understand how to solve the question type, right? So I'm just going to try to put everything here. Okay, just a moment. Yeah, okay. All right, and okay. This is sentence number 1. This is sentence number 2. And of course, the general instructions is as I had shown before, that 5 jumbled up sentences are related to a topic. We're going to do theory through question solving, right? So what I want you to do is, before I start, just spend 2 minutes or maybe just a minute. Okay, just spend a minute but try to just read the sentences. Don't try to find the answer. Okay, that is not what you want to do right now. Just read the sentences and try to understand the idea which is being talked about. Okay, the idea of what the sentences are trying to tell you. Okay, just spend a minute, do that, and we'll start discussing how to approach the question type. Okay, I guess everybody has read the questions. Okay, rather the sentences, and try to understand what is being talked about essentially. Right. So let's solve this together. Right. So the first sentence is, for feminists, the question of how we read. So the question. Okay, this is an idea, and we are talking about feminists, right? So for feminists, the question of how we read is inextricably linked with the question of what we read. So, something which is directly linked, right? So the question of how we read is inextricably linked with the question of what we read. So it's just trying to tell you the way you read is based on, or the way you interpret things is based on what you read. All right. Second statement says, Elaine Showalter's critique of the literary curriculum is exemplary of this work. Now, what is this work? We are not sure. Okay, but we are talking about some kind of literary curriculum. So if we have something which touches upon this idea, any of the sentences which touches upon this idea, we'll be able to use the sentence, right? Anyway, just try to understand. Initially, just try to understand what the sentences are saying, then focus on solving, right? That is the idea. That's why I give you a minute also to just read and go through the sentences. The third sentence says androcentric. Now, androcentric means something which is related to male centric, something which is centric to males. For example, if I had to give you an example, it would be, let's say there's a medical study which happens. Okay, so let's say it's about something about humans, right? And to come to a conclusion in that medical study, whatever the study is, they use only men as their subjects, so, or male subjects as their people, or as their things they want to experiment on. They only use those, and then based on what they find in amongst the male species, what they or men in humans, they will extrapolate that finding to the general audience. That is essentially what, or they'll just give you that, okay, we tested this out on male species, and now this is the result for everybody. That is one of the examples of androcentric. So androcentric literary structures, androcentric literature. So we are talking about male centric literature. Male centric literature structures the reading experience differently depending on the gender of the reader. So here we are talking about the fact that male centric, okay, see, try to understand. Sentence number one talked about feminists. Okay, so people who are women, they want women to be more, women centric or something like that. But here we are talking about male centric literature. Okay. So there is a kind of shift in idea, right? So you might think, okay, sentence one or sentence three might be the odd one out, but maybe both of them are not odd one out. And we are just trying to, the author is just trying to show two different arguments. So while you read sentence number three, you can't just jump to a conclusion कि अरे वन और थ्री में से ही होना चाहिए because वन में feminist का बात हो रहा है, थ्री में androcentric literature का बात हो रहा है. You can't do that. You can't just jump to a conclusion. You need to read all the five sentences and then come to an understanding. So for now, just keep in mind what sentence one talked about, two talked about, and three talked about. And again, sentence two talked about some kind of literary curriculum and the critique of the literary curriculum, right? So anyway, moving forward, androcentric literature structures the reading experience differently depending on the gender of the reader. Try to understand, this is a study, androcentric study is done on male, humans, okay, male species. And they are trying to, come to a conclusion that reading experience differs depending on the gender of the reader. And here we talked about, for feminists, the question of how we read is inextricably linked with the question of what we read. So just keep these two ideas in mind. Let's move forward. The documentation of this realization. Now, again, we have come to some realization, right? Now, what is this realization? Have we talked about this realization? This is not the realization. Please try to understand. Different, reading experience being different depending on the gender of the reader is not a realization. Okay, it's just something that they have come up with. Okay, so the documentation of this realization was one of the earliest tasks undertaken by feminist critics. Again, see, try to understand, we are talking about feminists here as well, feminists in statement one as well. So you can try to understand that maybe these two sentences are linked because the idea is about what feminists are trying to come to a conclusion, right? Again, let's try to understand sentence five first, then try to solve the question. More specifically, the feminist inquiry. Okay, inquiry, INQUIRY, right? So this is about some kind of questioning, okay, some questioning of something, right? And remember, in sentence number one, we also talked about for feminists, the question of how we read is inextricably linked with the question of what we read. So if you're able to link this, both of these things, that more specifically, the feminist inquiry into the activity of reading begins with the realization. Again, try to understand realization, sentence four and sentence number five. Maybe probably it is linked. Again, coming back to that, that the literary canon is basically literature. So like, writing books, novels, etc. That is anything literature is referred to as literary canon. Is so feminist inquiry into the activity of reading begins with the realization that the literary canon is androcentric. So that, whatever literature is written is male centric. Okay, and that this has a profoundly damaging effect on women readers. So of course, if things are written in a male, considering the male population, if females will read these things, they will, they will have different kind of opinions, right? They will feel that they are not being looked after, they're not being kept as the main idea of what is being reading, what they're reading, and different kind of conclusions. The what I want you to try to understand here in from these statements, from statement 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, before we come to the way to solve the question is, if you read sentence number one, tell me, is this sentence number one trying to tell you about a problem, or is it an example slash explanation, example or explanation? Tell me, is it a problem or example slash explanation? Tell me.
Explanation.
Explanation, right? Explanation or a problem? Inextricably means something related to. Is it a problem or explanation?
Explanation.
Explanation.
Everybody is saying explanation. Okay. All right. And what is sentence number 5? Is it a problem or an explanation? Is it trying to tell you about a problem or an explanation?
Um, about problem.
Problem.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Okay. I'll come to the answers. What about sentence number 2? What is it trying to say?
Explanation.
It's some kind of explanation or example, right? Because we are talking about some criticism of the literary curriculum, right? So, see, this is an example. ये तो तुम लोगों ने सही बोला, ठीक है? I'll come to sentence 3 a little later after sentence 4. What about sentence 4? Is it talking about a problem? Is it trying to? So, what I mean by problem is that is it trying to talk to you about some kind of idea, or is it trying to explain or give an example of that idea? Sentence number 4.
I mean, it's kind of expanding on the idea itself by telling us that this is something that the feminist critiques have also worked on.
Correct. Again, an example. Sentence number 1, which you guys had strongly pointed out, it's actually trying to give you a problem or trying to introduce an idea to you. Okay. So why is it introducing an idea? Let me just explain this. Because it is trying to set some kind of context for you, that the question of how we read is directly linked with the question of what we read. And why is that happening? That is explained now in statement number 5. More specifically, the feminist inquiry into the activity of reading. See, feminist inquiry into the activity of reading. This statement literally means that the feminist question into how we read, or what we read, it's exactly linked to that. That is what it is trying to say. Sentence 1 and 5 are linked directly together. Is this part clear to all of you? Because it is trying to expand on what is being referenced to in the first question. So first statement is trying to give you an idea that for feminists, the question of how they read is directly linked with the question of what we read. Okay. So, and if you read sentence 5, more specifically gives you, more specifically, your phrase है ना, this phrase basically, so let me use diagrams to explain to you. The first statement is like this, bro. Okay, this is the first statement. Now, the statement number 5, what statement number 5 is doing is trying to go deeper into this. Okay, so let's say this part, sentence number 5 wants to explain. This is the entire idea. Okay, sentence number 1 is this entire idea. Okay, and sentence number 5 is going to a specific part more specifically by mentioning more specifically. So that's why this is also an example of, or an explanation of what the idea has been said. Now this is where students often get confused, not being able to identify the idea correctly and the example or the explanation correctly. So to understand this more correctly, you need to start reading more. Anyway, coming back to that. So we know that 1 and 5 are linked. Why are they linked? Again, we talk about the question of how we read is inextricably linked with, or directly linked with, the question of what we read. And more specifically, the feminist inquiry into the activity of reading begins with the realization that a literary canon, or the books or something, the things which you read, is androcentric. So what we read was the question which was posed in sentence number 1. That was the question which was posed in sentence number 1. And what do they read is being answered in sentence number 5, that they read things which are androcentric. Now, you might think that why do I not take sentence number 3 here? Why can't I say sentence number 3 can come after sentence number 1? That is because, and sentence number 3 is trying to say androcentric literature structures the reading experience differently depending upon the gender of the reader. So it's trying to talk about males and females. But sentence number 1 is talking only about feminists. And sentence number 5 is also talking only about feminists. It is not talking about male readers at all. So you cannot use sentence number 3 right now, right? So let me just erase some parts so that it looks a little cleaner. Oops, no problem. 1 second here. This, okay, coming back. So now that we know that sentence 1 and 5 are linked together. Now, if you remember, sentence number 5 talked about some kind of realization. Okay, with the realization that the literary canon is androcentric and that this has a profoundly damaging effect on women readers. And the documentation of this realization was one of the earliest tasks undertaken by feminist critics. Again, this is again expanding into what, it is trying to lead you to some kind of conclusion that firstly, the question of how we read or how you read is directly linked with the question of what we read. Now, you answer the question of what we read. What do you read? You read text which is androcentric or male centric. And finally, realizing this, feminists, when they realized this, okay, this realization, when they documented, okay, when they, when they put it in research papers or when they voiced it out in the public, that was the earliest tasks undertaken by feminist critics. And if you read sentence number 2 now, Elaine Showalter's critique of the literary curriculum. So again, the literary canon or any kind of literature is exemplary of this work. So is, the testament to this work, or is, it gives you the it's like an example also, or it's the proof of this work. So that is how sentence 1, 5, 4, and 2 are linked. And sentence number 3 is the odd one out because sentence number 3, androcentric literature structures the reading experience differently depending on the gender of the reader. Now, this sentence, if you try to fit it anywhere, okay, let's say you try to fit it at the start. Okay, I'm assuming, let's say we don't know, we have not found this out. Okay, that 1542 is the correct answer. You try to fit this at the start. Androcentric literature structures the reading experience differently on the gender of the reader. For feminists, the question of how we read is inextricably linked with the question of what we read. More specifically, the feminist inquiry into the activity of reading begins with the realization that the literary can blah, blah, blah. The problem here is that this sentence number 3, okay, it talks about androcentric literature and and the main idea of all the sentences 1, 5, 4, and 2 is not about androcentric literature, but the main idea is about the feminist critique, which they had done, the criticism or the realizations which they had come to. That is the main idea, and that is what you have to understand, right? And that's why you cannot fit sentence number 3 anywhere. You try to fit it after 1, it will not fit. Okay, you can see question of how we read is inextricably linked with what we read. Androcentric literature, again, it does not make sense when you put it after 1 and 3. 1, it does not make sense. You try to put it out after any other sentence, it will not make sense. So what is the learning? Okay, before I come to any questions, if anybody has with this sentence, otherwise I'll go question, otherwise I'll go to the next question. I want to discuss one more question today. The learning is even though, even if rather, even if you find linked or rather find similar words or topics in multiple sentences, . it does not mean that they are linked. They could be linked. Okay, they could be linked, but it is not necessary that they are linked. As I showed you right here, androcentric was being talked about in two different places, right? It was talked about in 3 and 5. And maybe you thought, okay, androcentric, this is linked. Okay, and this is going to be together. But you need to understand that it should also make sense somewhere. Okay, it should make sense in some sort of part. It should make sense. So even though there'll be a lot of similar stuff you will read, you will find in different sentences, it does not mean that they are linked. You need to read with an open mind, right? And you need to read with while understanding what is happening, right? That is the first thing. Second thing is try to link ideas. Okay, this is very important. We What did I do in this when I was explaining this to you? All I did was linked the idea of feminism, question, criticism. That is what I followed. Feminism, they posed a question, and based on that question, what was the criticism or what was the realization which they came to? That is the structure of this argument, of this paragraph, of the sentences. And if you're not able to find this link, or if you're not able to find ideas, you will face a lot of problem in trying to link sentences or link paragraphs, trying to decipher how to find the correct order and find the odd one out. You'll face a lot of problem in that. So try to identify ideas, try to link those ideas together. Okay, the idea which occurs the most is oftentimes the idea which is going to link together. So that is our goal. Okay, to try to link different ideas, right? So this is there. Even if also, yeah, one more thing, even if you are not able to come to, sorry, if you even if you're not able to come to a conclusion, will it be 1542 or 4215 or 15, maybe 2415, whatever? Okay, if you even if you're not able to come to a conclusion like that, that's fine. You don't need to come to a conclusion what is the final order of four sentences. As long as you've found that four sentences are linked together, you can mark the fifth sentence as the odd one out and leave. Because in the question, you just need to identify the odd one out and key in the number of the sentence as your answer. That, not the fact that you need to find the correct order. That is not required, right? So I'm going to open the floor for questions, and if you guys have any questions related to this uh, paragraph, otherwise I will go to the next question which I want to discuss. I'm going to wait. No questions, which is of course a good thing if you guys have no questions. Okay, uh, I'll give you guys a minute to think if you want to ask anything. Otherwise, let's do one more sentence, and then we will wrap up this class, right? And of course, there's decent bit of learning from this one also. This question also. Yeah. One second. Identify. Group identify. Okay. All right. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to label the sentences also. Sentence number one. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, I will this here and yeah. Okay, great. No question. Okay, great. Chalo, spend a minute again to try to understand this these sentences. Try to understand the flow of the idea. Try to understand where the idea is being talked about, and then we'll discuss in a minute. Okay. So 128, we'll start discussing. Don't try to find the answer. I repeat, please don't try to find the answer because you will, in trying to find the answer, you will get confused. Okay, that is not the goal. All right, okay, let's start discussing now. And let's quickly wrap up with this. This is comparatively easier question. Okay, comparatively easier. But of course, again, it has a decent amount of learning. And you'll learn quite a lot from this question also. That's why I decided to take this. So anyway, so machine learning models are prone to learning human-like biases from the training data that feeds these algorithms. Okay. So, machine learning models are prone to learning human-like biases. So prone meaning are very likely to learn human-like biases. So human-like biases meaning like that, let's say I am fond of Pepsi. Okay, I like drinking Pepsi a lot. So if I try to talk about Pepsi in my, in talking to an AI algorithm or whatever, those I mean, I'm just giving you an example. It might learn from my bias, and if somebody asks the AI that should I like Coke or Pepsi more, maybe it will learn from my bias and feel ki, okay, maybe Pepsi is actually better. So might recommend Pepsi because of a bias. So this is just a very the normal example. So anyway, from the training data that feeds these algorithms. So sentence number one actually again is trying to talk to you about some kind of it's trying to expand on some kind of idea which probably would have talked about what what something which has been talked about earlier. Okay, because we are talking about that feeds these algorithms. Okay, so it could be that these algorithms is a refer to machine learning models also. It could be this, or that these algorithms actually talks about something completely different. Okay, some completely different, which is probably talked about in further sentences. So let's read sentence number two. Hate speech detection. Hate speech detection is part of the ongoing effort against oppressive and abusive language on social media. So to detect hate speech, why do you want to detect hate speech? To fight fight bullying and abusive language which is happening on social media. So to it is very important. So sentence number 2 is trying to give you an idea. It is trying to present some idea to you. Now, sentence number 2 could be the odd one out as well. Who knows? If the other sentences are not talking about something related to hate speech or detecting and all, then sentence number 2 could be the odd one out. So again, very unrelated sentences right now. Sentence 1 and 2. If you read sentence 3, the current automation detection models miss out on something vital: context. So this could be something which is being talked about here, related to sentence number 2, that hate speech detection is part of the ongoing effort, and the current automatic detection models miss out on something vital, which is context. So it could be true that 2 and 3 are together. I'm not saying they're going to be necessarily, but it could be that 2 and 3 are together, because it sounds good that you want to detect hate speech, and the current which want to detect, they are missing out on something vital, which is context. Now let's see whether this, whatever is being talked about in 3, is being talked about in 4 and 5 as well, or is it not? Let's look at sentence number 4. It uses complex algorithms to flag racist or violent speech faster and better than human beings alone. So if you see, it uses, this is an explanation of an idea, okay, or it is expanding on an idea. Okay, so that idea must have been talked about before, right? So what uses complex algorithms? It could be machine learning models, or it could be hate speech detection. Okay, it could be both. But the thing is, if you read sentence 1, machine learning models are prone to learning human-like biases from the training data that feeds these algorithms. This is not a sentence which is introducing some kind of idea to you. Okay, it is not a sentence which is introducing an idea to you. What this sentence is actually doing is it is trying to come to lead you to a conclusion that there is some problem, and some problem is because of XYZ, which was talked about earlier, and because of what is being talked about in sentence 1. So again, we cannot fit anything right now. So don't try to fit anything together. Just try to understand what is the flow of ideas which are happening in each of the sentences. One thing you can notice, if you try to fit 2 and 4 together, for example, if you try to fit 2 and 4 together, you will notice hate speech detection is part of the ongoing effort against oppressive and abusing language on social media. It uses complex algorithms to flag racist or violent speech, right? Racist or violent speech faster and better than human beings alone. Now, hate speech detection could actually use complex algorithms, and those algorithms are like machine learning models, and maybe current detection models miss out on something vital. It could be like that, right? So 2 and 4 also sound good. It depends on how the structure of the sentences are going to be. Further sentences, sentence number 5, what is it going to talk to you about, through which you can actually piece together what are you supposed to use, right? So 2 and 4 is good, right? Now let's look at sentence number 5. For instance, algorithms struggle to determine, okay, this is not determine, this will be determine, okay, D-E-T-E-R-M, okay, D-E-T-E-R-M-I-N-E. I'll just fix this. Algorithms struggle to determine group identifier like gay or black are used in offensive, is this language correct? Yeah, this is correct, yeah. Are used in offensive or prejudiced ways because they are trained on imbalanced data sets with unusually high rates of hate speech. Now, again, try to see the sentence number 5. Okay, look at the sentence number 5. It's talking about they are trained on imbalanced data sets with unusually high rates of hate speech. It is relating you to hate speech as well from earlier. It is relating you to this part also. Machine learning models are prone to learning human-like biases also, right? It is relating you to both of these both of these ideas, right? So, what do you think? What should be the flow? Because we are, we have a lot of confusion here, right? That there's a lot of linkages between multiple sentences, and biases and all, right? So to understand the link, okay, uh, yeah, sorry, to understand the link of how the sentences are flowing, what you need to do now, you've read all the five sentences. So to get to the link, right, you want to first try to identify what will be the first two sentences which are going to be together. You've read everything, right? And you've tried to identify what is the what how are things linked. Now first look at sentence number 2 and 4. Okay. And we had another option 2 and 3, right? So let's look at sentence 2 and 4 together. Okay. Hate speech detection, which uses complex algorithms, right, to flag racist or violent speech. But here, if you see sentence number 5, it's talking about for instance, right? Uh, for instance, the algorithm struggle to determine group identifiers, right? So that is trying to give me the fact that this, for instance, is actually coming out from sentence number 1, that machine learning models are prone to learning human-like biases from the training data that feeds these algorithms. So, and then you have, for instance, algorithms struggle to determine group identifier like gay or black are used in offensive or prejudiced ways because they're trained on imbalanced data sets with unusually high rates of hate speech. So sentence 1 and 5 link very nicely, right? And you know that sentence 2 is talking about detection of hate speech, right? And sentence 4 is talking about complex algorithms, right? So if you see sentence number 3, which tries to give this give you a kind of it tries to move you away from something, which is the current automation detection models miss out on something vital, which is context. You might feel this is correct, right? That the algorithms struggle to determine group identifiers because they don't have context. No, that is not the problem. That is not why they are not able to detect that is not because of lack of context. They are not able to, it's not that lack of context leads them to struggling to determine group identifiers. What is leading to them not being able to determine group identifiers is machine learning models which are prone to learning human-like biases from the training data that feeds these algorithms. Okay, so that's why if you see sentence number 3, see what sentence number 3 is saying. It may not be wrong from your perspective. Okay, it may not be wrong from the general idea we know. But in this, while trying to come to a conclusion here, are you going to use something which is outside of any outside information? No, you're not going to use any outside information. You're only going to use information which is given to you here, right? And using information given to you here, it makes sense that machine learning models, which are prone to learning human-like biases, they are prone to learning human-like biases. Why? Because they learn from training data that feeds these algorithms. Okay. So so that is something which is happening, right? And 2 and 4 is also coming together. We've identified this, right? It is definitely better than 2 and 3, because 2 and 3 do not have the correct link together. Okay, 2 and 4 have a better link together because of the pronoun also being used, it being used here. That is also one of the reasons. Other reasons being the fact that it flows well with the other sentences also, right? So I have not come to the sentence structure flow right now. That is it going to be 2415 1524 or 2145, something like that. I have not come to that yet. Okay. And do I need to come to that? Maybe not. Okay, because I can understand that sentence number 2, 4 are linked ideas. Sentence number 5, 1 and 5, they are also linked ideas. Sentence number 3 is the only sentence which is not linking me to any other sentence. Okay. Because see, I'm not talking about context. Okay. If you see sentence number 5, all right, let me erase some of this. If you see sentence number 5, it could have talked about context. All right. And if sentence number 5 was talking about context, then sentence number 3 would have been it would have been a part of the answer. But the problem is, sentence number 5 is actually talking about the fact that algorithms struggle. Why do they struggle? Struggle because they are trained on imbalanced data sets with unusually high rates of hate speech. Because they are trained on this, and that leads them to learning human-like biases, okay, which ends up ruining their understanding of trying to find which word or which sentence in a particular context is used in an offensive way or is used in a normal explanatory way, right? So that is a problem which these machine learning models are facing. So the idea flow which is happening is hate speech detection is something which is part of right now ongoing effort, right? And you have complex algorithms which flag these racist and violent speech sentences or ideas, or wherever it is talked about, they identify those, and they are better at finding them than humans. They're faster, they're not better, sorry. And they're faster and better both, sorry, they're faster and better both, right? Than human beings alone, right? But it also talks about the fact that in algorithms struggle to determine group identifiers which are used in offensive or prejudiced ways because they're trained on imbalanced data sets. So even though they are better at identifying, they are sometimes they struggle in determining these group identifiers. Group identifiers being talking about a specific group, right? So if you talk about women, it could be a group identifier. If you talk about men, it could be a group identifier. If you talk about citizens of India, it is again a group identifier. If you talk about puppies, it's a group identifier. So one word which you use to reference to a large number of human beings